Hello guys, this is Oroth and a warm welcome back to my channel. Today I'm finally releasing another video and it's gonna be about familiars, and I call it the ultimate familiar guide. Before we begin, I would like to say that this is quite an advanced topic, but I've tried to cover everything important so that you will be able to know what to do going forward. Most of the things in this video is based of my own research, but I also had some help from mystery friends on Discord. And to you guys, I would like to say thank you. You know who you are. And also, maybe there are some details in this video that is not 100% correct. And there is maybe some more research yet to be done. But I think that, I feel quite confident that most of the information here is quite solid. So let's dive straight into the timeline of today's video. So, first we will talk about attributes. After that, we will go through the different passive skills. We're of course also going to talk about traits. Then we're going to talk about melding. After that, we will cover different types of conversions. We will also highlight a couple of different strategies that you can utilize yourself. We will both go through a strategy that it's a bit easier if you have low resources. And we will also go through a strategy you can use if you have more resources and want to invest more heavily into familiars. After that, I will just make a brief notions about some things where we have to do even further research. And finally, I want to give my conclusions on familiars as a whole. So, yes, here we have the timeline of today's video, and let us begin with attributes. As we can see in front of us, here's a table of the 8 different types of familiars you can collect in Diablo Immortal. And if I put on the pointer here for us, we can see that we have 4 different types of attributes. We have ferocity, agility, insight, and resilience. So then we have to ask ourselves, what do these attributes do? They actually do 2 different things. First of all, they activate different types of traits, and we will cover that later in this video. But they also buff different types of passive skills. So as a matter of fact, if we look here on the different familiars, if we take Varog for example, we can see here that he can have very high agility and very high insight, medium ferocity and very low resilience. So therefore Varog will work better with certain skills compared to other skills. We're gonna look deeper into this in a moment. As you can see here, every familiar also has a special active skill. We're not gonna go into the different active skills and what they do in this video. This video will be more about explaining the mechanics so that you understand how everything works. So I think this is enough to say about attributes. Let's move on and start talking about skills. There are 24 different passive skills you can get on your familiars, and each of them corresponds with a certain attribute. So there are 6 skills for each attribute. And in front of us now, we have the skills that corresponds with ferocity. We have manhunt, razor claws, precision, savage blows, concuss, and relentless strikes. If you want to increase the potency of these skills, what you need is a legendary familiar with high ferocity. The ferocity has to be at least 170. And there are only 4 types of familiars that can reach a ferocity of 170. On the left side here we find Quake Strider and Myrgen, and they actually have ferocity as their main attribute, so it can go up to 200. While the Skitterwicht and Ash Sweeper here on the right side has ferocity as its secondary attribute. So it can go up to 180. If we dive a little bit deeper into the 6 skills here, they actually have different rarity. The 3 on the top here, Manhunt, Razor Claws and Precision, you can find in magic form, you can find it in rare form, and you can find it in legendary form. Savage Blows and Concuss, they are actually the special passive skill of Quake Strider and Myrgen. So Savage Blows is for Quake Strider and Concuss is for Myrgen. So if you find a contract and you manage to summon a Quake Strider from it, it can never have a Concuss. But when you upgrade it to level 30, you might find a rare skill called Savage Blows. What is good though is that you can actually transfer this skill onto another species through melding. So let's say that you have a Quake Strider with Savage Blows, then you can actually transfer it to a Myrgen if you would like to, or vice versa with a Concuss. When it comes to Relentless Strikes, you can only find it in its legendary form, and this is something you need some luck when you do a conversion of 3 aberrants. You might end up with Relentless Strikes, and there is actually for each attribute there is it's the same system. You have 3 skills that you can find in magic, rare and legendary. You have 2 that corresponds with a certain species, and you have 1 that you can only find in its legendary form, and you can only find it through converting aberrants. So yeah, this is the ferocity skills. Here we have the agility skills, and yeah, we've already talked about how it's built here, but at the top we have the common ones. Then we have Ignition, which is tied to Varog. We have Fervor, that is tied to Stormlost. And then we have Innervate, that you can only find in its legendary form. And yeah, if you want to make a build evolving around these skills here, you have to use one of the 4 pets on the top here. Here we have the Insight passive skills, and yeah, the 3 on the top is the common ones. Then you have Ice Touch, that is the special skill of Skitterwicht. You have Lingering Wounds, that is the special skill of the Brood Talon. And then we have Spectral Reach, which is the skill you can only find in its legendary form. And finally here we have the Resilience skills. So we have the 3 at the top here, they are the common ones. Then we have Steelhide, that corresponds with Ash Sweeper. We have Rejuvenate, that you can get from Dusk Prowler. And Savior you can only find in its legendary form. And yeah, there are many different types of combinations that you can use when you try to build a familiar that has certain passive skills. You can also mix skills from different attributes to make like the perfect combination. We're not gonna dive too deep into each and every skill here, But in the end of this video, I will make a suggestion and show you what I am aiming for. And feel free to copy that strategy if you want to. And of course, later on, I might release another video where we talk more in depth about how different passive skills interacts with different active skills, for example. So I think this is enough said about the different passive skills, and let's move on to the next segment of this video. We're going to talk about traits. In front of us now, we have the different traits. So first here we can see Maim. It increases critical hit chance. After that we see Finesse, which increases skill damage. We have Fiendish Haste, which increases damage done to players. We have Prescience, that reduces damage taken from players. We have Survival Instinct, that increases your health. We have Bestial Might, that increases your primary attack damage. We have Decimate, that increases critical hit damage. And finally we have Steadfast, that reduces damage taken. We also have the 3 utility traits, which is Salvager, that makes it possible to salvage materials without going to the blacksmith. We have an Appraiser that makes it possible to identify new items. And we have the Pack Mule, which makes it possible to remotely access the armory to change your gear. And yeah, we can also see that this is from my traits page. So this is what I have active at the moment, and we can see some different colors here. We have orange, that means it's an advanced trait that's active. We have yellow, which means that it's a normal trait that's active. And then we have some grayed out ones that are not active at all yet. And something that's very important to say here is that the normal traits, they do not stack with each other. So you can only have one pet with a normal finesse trait active. If you would forge a bond with a second pet that has the same trait, it will not stack. But this is not true for the advanced traits. They actually do stack. So if you manage to get 2 different legendary familiars that both has Maim as an active trait, then they will stack the effects. But very important to note here is that you can't use 2 pets of the same species. So for example, if you have 2 Quake Striders with Maim active, the advanced trait Maim, it will not stack with each other. So it has to be from 2 different species. So I have prepared a table here where we can see which different familiars that can have the different traits. And for each trait there are 4 different familiars that can trigger it. For example, if we look to the left here, we can see the Maim trait. Let me put on the pointer here. Here we see the Maim trait that increases critical hit chance. And it's Varog, Quake Strider, Broad Talon, and Dusk Prowler that can have the Maim trait. So here you can either go, we're going to talk about the strategies later, but if you don't want to spend a lot of in-game resources on familiars, an easy strategy is to try to activate all the normal traits. And as I said, they don't stack with each other. So then you just need to equip rare pets, because it's only rare pets that can activate the normal traits, because you need at least 120 of a certain attribute to activate a normal trait. And that is fairly simple to do. And a lot of you might be happy if that's what you're able to do. And then if you're lucky, maybe you find some familiars with a utility trait, and yeah, that's a decent strategy. But if you want to optimize your familiars better, you have to look on the different advanced traits, and depending on what you are aiming for, there are different combinations that suits best. I usually tend to structure my builds around PvE, because the impact of the changes you do in a build is so much bigger for each change you do when it comes to PvE compared to PvP. And the strategy I have opted for when it comes to the traits is therefore to maximize the maim trait and the primary attack damage trait. I know in other videos I've been saying that when you look for new items, for me personally, I try to look for critical hit chance combined with critical hit damage, but primary attack damage is also almost as good as critical hit damage. And if we look here on this table, what is so good is that it's actually the same pets that can have the critical hit chance trait that also can have the primary attack damage trait over here. So yeah, my strategy is to have one Varog, one Quake Strider, one Brood Talon, and one Dusk Prowler. And then my goal is to activate these two traits on all of them. It's quite difficult to find any familiars with more than 2 advanced traits. And this is something I've been trying to figure out how to achieve. If there's maybe a way where you can convert different pets that has 2 advanced traits on them, and it will increase the chances to get a 3rd advanced trait. But after a lot of testing, I have not been able to reach any conclusive results. So hopefully that is something I will figure out later, or maybe someone else will figure it out, and I look forward to that. So yeah, you can look on this table and you can think about which of the traits you think is most important. If you are only focusing on PvP, the Strife debuff is active on most of these traits, but not for the ones that affects player damage or player damage taken reduced. So then you can opt for those trees here instead. If you want to increase your player damage, for example, you have this row here that shows which pets is which pets that can have that trait. As you can see, also you can only have 4 pets for each trait, and there is a total of 5 slots for your companions. So my plan is to have 4 slots that are focusing on having the correct advanced traits, and then I'm going to focus on the 5th pet, which will be my main companion pet, and there I will look more on the passive skills it has, because the passive skills only has effect on your companion familiar. The other familiars that you forge bond with, it doesn't matter what passive skills they have. It's only the traits that matters for those familiars. So yeah, this table can be useful for you. If we look here a little bit deeper on the advanced traits, as I mentioned, they do stack. So here I have 2 examples. If we look on the left here, we have critical hit chance. If I have 1 pet with the advanced trait maim active, I will gain 1% critical hit chance. But if I manage to get a 2nd pet or familiar with maim, it will increase to 3%. And what's good with this buff is that it's flat. So it's just like critical hit chance from your magical attributes, or from some sets, or from your legendary gems. It will add a flat value. If you compare this with the critical hit chance that you get from, for example, Paragon effects, or from most buffs, that critical hit chance works a little bit differently, because let's say that you have 50% flat critical hit chance, and then you have a buff that says increase your critical hit chance by 20%. It doesn't increase your actual critical hit chance by 20%. What it does is that it takes 100 minus your flat critical hit chance, and then you have 20% of that amount. So if I had 50% critical hit chance flat, and I add a 20% critical hit chance buff, then I will get 20% of 50%. And that is only 10%. If I had a flat critical hit chance of 40%, I would gain 20% of 60%. So it's very important to know which sources that gives flat critical hit chance and which sources that doesn't give a flat critical hit chance. And that's a very positive thing about the familiar traits here. They give a flat bonus. If we look here on the primary attack damage trait, we can see that on the first level, when I have one pet, it gives me 1.5% primary attack damage. If I have two of them, it gives 4.5%. And if I manage to find a third one and activate it, it will give me 7.5% primary attack damage. I know that for these traits, it's possible that you get even more. If we see here on the critical hit chance, for example, it goes up by 2%. And on the primary attack damage, it goes up by 3% here for each level. But it's also possible that you maybe get even more than 3% here if you manage to get 4 active advanced traits. So yeah, we have to see about that, because there are some other advanced traits that doesn't add the same every level. I think that skill damage, for example, it gives a higher increase from rank 2 to rank 3 compared to rank 1 to rank 2. So it is not 100% clear yet what these tables look like. But of course, I'm going to share it on my channel whenever I find out. What's also important to note here before we move on is that to the right here, we can see that I have a pet with 2 advanced traits, but only one of them is active. Because this is from my Brood Talon, the dragon, and he has a lot of insight, which activates this trait, but he doesn't have enough agility to activate this second trait. So what I have to do then is that I either have to somehow increase the agility so that I have 2 legendary stats on this pet, or I can convert it, because actually if Decimate now requires agility, if I convert it, it might change to Insight. But of course, then also Bestial Might might change the attribute from Insight to agility. So if you only have one legendary stat on your familiar, it's going to be more difficult to get to activate the traits that you want to. But I'm going to show you in just a little bit on how you can increase your stats on a legendary familiar. Now we have reached the melding segment of this video, and as I see it, you can use melding for 3 different reasons. You can either use it to increase your attributes on a certain familiar, and this is possible when you are melding 2 familiars of the same species. So if you are melding 2 Dusk Prowlers, for example, you can increase the stats on one of them if the other Dusk Prowler has a higher number on any of the stats, or any of the attributes, I mean. I'm going to show you in just a little bit what I mean with this. You can also use melding to increase the skill quality, because if you have a a normal pet with no rare skills, only blue or magic skills as they are called, you can through melding increase the skill quality. And of course I'm also going to show how that works. And finally, melding is also a good way to handpick certain skills. You can either quite easily handpick the skills that you want for a normal familiar, but this can also be transferred up to an aberrant familiar, but it's quite a complicated process, but I'm gonna show that process to you here as well. So let's start talking about attribute melding. And I have made an example here where I'm gonna explain step by step how you can improve, for example, a legendary familiar. If we look here on the left side, this is the attributes of my legendary Varog. And as we can see here, it has a legendary attribute stat, which is agility. It is legendary as soon as it reaches 170. And this is what I need to activate advanced traits and also to increase the potency of certain passive skills. So while using this familiar, I will activate any advanced trait that requires agility, and I will also increase the potency of any legendary passive skill that is from the agility category that we went through a bit earlier in this video. It's quite difficult to find a familiar with one legendary attribute, and it's very, very difficult and rare to find a familiar with two legendary stats. But there's actually a way to transform a legendary with one legendary attribute to a legendary with two legendary attributes, and I'm going to explain to you how now. So using this Varog as an example, what I first have to do is that I have to acquire a total of 12 rare normal Varogs. They have to be normal because if you remember, the only familiars you can meld is normal familiars. You cannot meld aberrant familiars with each other. So what you have to do here is that you have to find 12 rare normal Varogs, and you have to find one of them with at least 170 insight, another one with at least 169 insight, and then another one with at least 168 insight, etc., etc., all the way down to 159 insight. It might be a little bit tricky to, the higher the insight is, to find it, especially to find the one with 170. But what you can do then is that you can acquire a legendary Varog that has at least 170 insight, and then you can exchange the attributes to a normal rare Varog, because then that familiar will have 170 or more insight. So so you can be lucky and find this through contracts, but of course you can also check the market to see if there are any available pets, so you can start collecting these normal rare Varogs. When you have managed to find these 12 Varogs, then you want to get another rare normal Varog. And what you want to do is that you want to transfer your stats from this first legendary Varog we had. You want to exchange it with this new rare normal Varog. We're gonna call this Varog Y, and after we have done this exchange, Y will be a normal rare Varog with 186 agility and 158 insight, because this is the stats we have now on the legendary pet in this example. After I've done so, I can start melding the Y pet with the 12 collected Varogs from step 1. And this we do to gain 1 insight each time we meld. And when we do this, it's very important that we use them in the correct order. Because if I use the Y Varog that has 158 insight, and I meld it immediately with the Varog that has 170 insight, I will still only gain 1 attribute point. So it's very, very important to do it in the correct order, otherwise it will fail. You will not reach 170. So be very careful. When you are done with step 3, Y is actually a normal rare Varog with 186 agility and 170 insight. So what you can do then is that you can transfer the attributes back to your original Varog, and voila, all of a sudden we now have a Varog with 186 agility and 170 insight, which is also legendary. That means it will increase the potency of every agility and insight passive skill, plus of course activate any advanced traits, no matter what attribute it needs. So this is one example on when it's very useful to use melding to increase attributes. Of course, there was also other areas where it's useful to with melding, and one of them was to increase skill quality. And here's an example. I am melding 1 Quake Strider and 1 Varog, and it has no rare skills. Both of them only has blue skills. And when I convert 2 familiars with the same skill quality, when I meld them, I actually gain 1 extra rare skill. So in this case, I am using conversion on 2 normal familiars with only magic or blue skills. And when I do so, I will acquire 1 rare skill. If I want to improve this further and get a second rare skill, I have to meld the new pet, which has 1 rare skill, with another familiar that has 1 rare skill. And when I do so, I will end up with 2 rare skills. Why do I want to do this? Yes, there are 2 different reasons. Either I want to create a familiar with as high skill quality as possible that has the skills that I'm looking for, or I just want to gain more rare skills to end the pact with the familiar, because when I end the pact or destroy a familiar, if it has any rare skills, I will get conversion stones. And conversion stones, they are used to protect the skill quality of an aberrant pet, and also the rarity of it when I make an aberrant conversion. And I'm going to talk about that in just a little bit. So yeah, when it comes to conversion stones, it's actually calculated like this. Each basic pet that has no rare skill is worth 0.5 conversion stones. And you need 2 basic pets with no rare skills to make a pet with 1 yellow skill. So that is 0.5 plus 0.5. That is 1. You need 4 basic pets to make a familiar with 2 rare skills. So that adds up to 2 conversion stones. And then you need, you just double it all the time. So you need 2 familiars for 1 rare skill. You need 4 familiars for 2. You need 8 for 3. You need 16 for 4. You need 32 for 5. And you need 64 for 6 rare skills. And if you use 64 basic pets to make a familiar with 6 rare skills, if you end the pact with it, you're gonna receive 64 times 0.5, so you will receive 32 conversion stones. So yeah, either you do it to later end the pact to receive the conversion stones, or you want to make a pet that has 6 certain skills, and then you do the process again to end up with 3 pets that has the same 6 passive skills. And when you then make a conversion, it increases the chances that these skills will be on the new familiar. And if that familiar then is aberrant, you can in turn use it to change the skills on your main companion. Of course, this is quite a complicated process, but this is a way to craft your companion pet to have exactly the skills you are looking for. So we're gonna look here at an example of a normal conversion. Here are 3 different familiars. We have a Quake Strider, we have a Varog, and we have a Skitterwicht. So what will happen if we make a conversion with these 3 familiars? First of all, when you make a normal conversion, the rarity is always random. So it doesn't matter if you put in a blue or a yellow familiar, the outcome can be will be random. When we look on the traits, I do believe that it's also random which traits the new familiar will have. But there's also 10% chance when you do a normal conversion to gain one of the utility traits. So either the Salvager, the Identifier, or the Remote Armory. What is also important to note here is that the familiar with the highest skill quality will affect the outcome. So if we make a conversion with these 3 familiars, we can see that the one with the highest skill quality is the Quake Strider here. It has 3 yellow passive skills. And when I do this conversion, it means that the result will be a new familiar with at least 2 yellow skills. It can be more as well if you're lucky. But yeah, it works like this. You take the highest skill quality, which is 3, and then you just subtract 1. And then you know that you will at least have 2 yellow skills. We can also see that we are using 3 different species here. So it's basically 1/3 chance for the new familiar to be one of these 3. And finally, we can see, look here on the passive skills. We can see that we have tenacity here, which reduces the cooldown of the active skill. That passive skill is on all 3 familiars. That gives us an 80% chance that the new familiar will also have this passive skill. It's the same for affliction. It gives also 80% because we have affliction here on all 3. And finally, we have a 40% chance to gain soul shield because yeah, we have 2 pets here, 2 familiars that has soul shield. Other than that, it's going to be entirely random which passive skills you end up with. So if you, for example, have a very strong companion, but it has the wrong passive skills, what you want to do is that you want to, through melding, make 3 familiars that has 6 skills that you want on your companion. And remember that you should pick skills that are increased by the main attribute of your companion. Because if you, for example, have yeah, let's take Savior as an example. Okay, that's a bad example because you can't. You can only get it through aberrant conversion. But let's take tenacity here. If you have tenacity on familiar with the correct attribute, it will increase the cooldown of this skill even further. So yeah, keep that in mind when you are trying to make a perfect pet. Yeah, I think this is what I can say about normal conversion here. On this slide, I'm also going to show you just another example so you don't make this mistake. If I would do this conversion instead, what we have changed here is that we put in another Quake Strider, and what we see here is that we have 4 yellow skills on this one and we have 3 yellow skills on this one, and the only thing that affects the skill quality of the new familiar is the one with the best with 4 here. So you should never make a conversion with 2 strong pets. It's better to exchange this top one for some for another familiar that has no yellow skills, because yeah, you can this is worth 4 conversion stones that you will lose otherwise. We can also see now when we have 2 Quake Striders, we increase the chance of the new pet or the new familiar to be a Quake Strider. We have also switched out some of the passive skills, so it also changes the likelihood of some passive skills on the new pet. So yeah, this is how normal conversions are working, and it's always a 30% chance to get an aberrant. So if you want to use melding and conversion to in the end affect the passive skills of your main companion pet, then first you need to make 3 familiars with the correct skills, and then when you convert them you have a 30% chance for it to be an aberrant that you can use to convert with your main pet. And when you do an aberrant conversion, it works the same way with the skills. So let's say that you really want tenacity on your main pet because it reduces the cooldown of the active skill. Then you want to convert it with 2 other aberrants that has tenacity, because then you will have a 40% chance to gain it on your main pet. So of course this is some RNG involved, and it might take many tries before you get exactly what you want. But let's say that after some time you have managed to acquire tenacity on your main familiar, and then you do a conversion again with the 2 aberrants that has tenacity, then it will be 80% chance because all of the 3 have them. But this will always be a little bit risky because 80% is only 80%. So even though you are making a perfect conversion, you might still end up with skills that you don't want. So to make a 100% perfect familiar is almost impossible. Almost impossible. So let us also talk about aberrant conversions. In many ways they work similar to normal conversions because as I just told you, the likelihood of acquiring certain skills after an aberrant conversion works the same way as with a normal conversion. It's also possible to increase the likelihood of your aberrant familiar to have a certain number of advanced traits. And here I can say that I have done quite a few aberrant conversions, and I never ended up with less traits than I had before. So I'm not sure if it's possible to lose any advanced traits. Of course the advanced traits can change, but you will, if you have 2 advanced traits on your aberrant familiar and you make a conversion, it will still have 2 advanced traits after that conversion. It's maybe possible to somehow increase the chances to gain a 3rd advanced trait. This requires a lot more testing. I've been trying to convert several aberrants that has 2 advanced traits without any success. It's possible that it increases the chances, but I don't know really yet. And maybe someone else knows about this. Please share it in the comments. I really look forward to gain that knowledge, because this is something I really want to do. I also chose these 3 familiars here to tell you something very important, because when you are making an aberrant conversion, you can protect the skill quality and the rarity of your aberrant. But this will only look on the familiar with the highest skill quality. So in this example, we can see a Quake Strider here that has 3 legendary passive skills and 3 yellow ones. And we have a legendary aberrant with 3 legendary skills and 3 blue skills. And I know that some people, they have thought that, okay, if I make this conversion, I will still keep the same skill quality and keep the rarity. But this is not true. It will only keep the rarity of the familiar with the highest skill quality. So in this case, it would actually keep the rarity of the Quake Strider. And of course you don't want this, because you want to not lose a legendary familiar. So what you need to do, there is one way to transfer to make the Quake Strider legendary. It is to actually take this Varog and then you convert it with the two Quake Striders with lesser skill quality than this Varog. And when you do that, you have a 66% chance for the new familiar to be a Quake Strider. And when you have that familiar, you can exchange the attributes onto this Quake Strider on the top here. So be very careful when you do these conversions, so you don't make any mistakes. I have found this out the hard way. I've been losing quite a lot of familiars with many legendary skills. So the main rule is to always use one good familiar and then two bad familiars with bad passive skills. That is the key rule. Yeah, I would always use conversion stones when I do a conversion with a pet that has at least two legendary passive skills. If you make a conversion with three bad aberrants, then you can gamble a little bit if you want to. Each conversion costs 2,000 platinum to do. So yeah, be very careful at least. Like I mentioned, you can turn one legendary aberrant into a different species. So just to make an example here, I had an Ash Sweeper with two legendary attributes, but I don't want this to be an Ash Sweeper. I wanted to make it, when I did this, I wanted to make it a Quake Strider. So what I did was that I took this Ash Sweeper and then I converted it with two bad Quake Striders, and I managed to end up with a Quake Strider. And as you can see here, the numbers here on the attributes are exactly the same. So it was 198 resilience on the Ash Sweeper. It became 198 ferocity on the Quake Strider. And yeah, you can see the agility turned to insight, the insight turned to agility, and the ferocity turned to resilience. And what is good about this tip is that I don't know how it is on all the other servers, but on my server, for example, a lot of people, they want the dusk prowlers. And what's happening then is that the market is always drained on dusk prowlers. And of course the prices go up on the dusk prowlers as a result. But if you have this knowledge, it actually means that it doesn't really matter which pets that you get from the market, because you can always convert it into different species anyways. So by this being said, it's before everyone understands how this works, there is no point for me, for example, to buy a lot of dusk prowlers, because I can instead get the other species, optimize them, and then turn them into dusk prowler. So this is also a useful tip for anyone who wants a specific species. So yeah, this is basically aberrant conversions. What I can say before we leave this segment is that the higher the skill quality is on your main aberrant that you are trying to convert, the more conversion stones you need to protect it. And I think it works like this, that if you have one legendary passive skill, it will cost 2 conversion stones. If it has 2 legendary passive skills, it will cost 8, and then you keep multiplying it by 4. So if you have 3, it's 32. If you have 4, it's 32 times 4. If it's 4, it's, yeah, you get the point. I'm too tired to calculate it in my head right now. So yeah, I hope I really covered everything when it comes to conversions. And as I said, if there's anyone who knows how to increase the chances of acquiring more than 2 advanced traits by a certain method, please share that in the comments, because I'm very eager to find out. So just, I know there's been a lot of information so far, so I wanted to melt it down into 2 different strategies that you can use. And I have one strategy for those who has limited resources, and I have another strategy for those who wants to invest some more resources in the familiars. So if we look here first, we have the low resources strategy, which is quite easy. And the goal of this strategy is to activate all normal traits and some utility traits over time. So it's quite straightforward. If you want to use this strategy, you should summon as many familiars from contracts as you can, and then you will convert any common or magic familiars you find. If you manage to find a rare familiar, you should sell it for market value, unless it has a trait you have not activated yet. In that case, you can either equip it as a companion or forge a bond with it. Because as I mentioned earlier in the trait section, you get the effects from the passive skills only on your companion, but the traits, they activate from both your companion and your forge bonds. And you can have 1 companion and 4 forge bonds. After that, if you make any conversions and you acquire an aberrant familiar, I would also put it on the market for the market value, try to sell it. And yeah, when you have managed to reach the goal of this strategy, I would just keep on selling all rares and aberrants that you find. Because you will gain more power if you spend your platinum elsewhere. Familiars has very high potential, but it's better to focus on legendary gems or normal gems, for example, than to invest in your familiars. So of course you can do as you please, but this is just my recommendation. And yeah, good luck with this strategy if this is what you're opting for. If you are willing to invest some more resources in your familiars, I also, of course, want to present a more advanced strategy. And the goal of this strategy is to activate 8 specific advanced traits, plus having one great companion familiar. So in order for you to achieve this goal, you have to look for at least 5 familiars with a legendary stat. And here it's important to remember that you can, of course, get a legendary stat through an aberrant conversion. I think there's around 1.2% chance whenever you do an aberrant conversion that the result will be a familiar with a legendary stat. Remember though that this is only if you use a conversion without conversion stones, because whenever you use conversion stones, you ensure that the stat numbers will be exactly the same. At least this is, I think it's not possible to get a legendary from using conversion stones. But of course, sometimes you do conversions with poor quality aberrants, and then you might be lucky and end up with a legendary stat. But actually, you can also get a legendary stat on a normal rare familiar. So you can get this through contracts or through normal conversions. And what you can do then is that, let's say that you are lucky and you manage to get a normal rare pet with a legendary stat. You can exchange the attributes onto an aberrant of the same species. And then that aberrant will turn legendary as long as it has any legendary passive skills on it. So this is another way to acquire a legendary familiar. And I've actually not been able to find that many legendaries through conversions. It's mostly through exchange attributes from a normal rare familiar. So this you can sometimes find on the market. It's if you can find it for a good price, you should get it. So when you have these 5 familiars with the legendary stat, you want to exchange the attributes from 4 of them to aberrants that has 2 advanced traits each. Because the goal of this strategy is to end up with 8 specific active advanced traits. And the 5th one you will exchange to a familiar with great skills who will become your companion. And you can look in the market and see if you find any familiar with high skill quality that also has the skills that you are looking for, and you can use that for starters. And then later, like the end game of this strategy, you will try to refine the skills even further on that familiar. But when we have done so, by now we have 4 legendary familiars with 2 advanced traits each. And if any of them is not the species you want, you can do this conversion trick. For example, if you have an ash sweeper, but it has 2 advanced traits, but you need maim and primary attack, then you can, for an example, convert it with 2 dusk prowlers and end up with a dusk prowler instead. It's not sure that the dusk prowler will have the 2 advanced traits that you need, or that they are active, because maybe they require the wrong legendary stat. But then you can just keep converting it, and if you're lucky, you're gonna hit the jackpot. This is what I'm working on right now. And personally, I will go for 4 times maim and 4 times bestial might. So 4 times critical hit chance and 4 times primary attack damage. And as I mentioned earlier, for this I need Varog, Quake Strider, Brood Talon, and Dusk Prowler. And when I'm done with the traits, I will start working on the melding on my companion pet to get the skills that I want. And yeah, I can show you here how far I've reached so far. I have 4 legendary familiars, and as you can see, I have the Quake Strider, and it's really strong because it has 2 legendary stats. I have a legendary Brood Talon and a legendary Varog, and I also have a legendary Ash Sweeper. What I want to do with this is that I want to convert it with 2 Dusk Prowlers, and then I will have the 4 legendaries that I want. I actually, as I told you earlier, I had an Ash Sweeper with these attributes, and I turned it into Quake Strider. But I think I'm gonna turn this into a Brood Talon instead, because I want the dragon as my main companion familiar. And I'm gonna show you why on the next slide. There are many different passive skills and many different combinations, but I have been focusing on how to improve my PvE damage as much as possible, and for this I need a familiar that has high agility and high insight, and that is the Brood Talon, the dragon. And at the moment my Brood Talon looks like this, but when if I turn my Quake Strider into a Brood Talon, I can exchange the attributes over to this one, and then I will have a dragon with both legendary insight and legendary agility. And when I have that, I can start the melding process, and I want to look for these 4 passive skills. The star of this setup is the Lingering Wounds, because whenever the dragon is using its active skill, it will also increase the damage the target takes for 3 seconds. And the good thing about using Lingering Wounds with the dragon is that the dragon applies a dot effect, so every tick it will renew the Lingering Wounds. And of course I want this to happen as often as possible, so therefore I also want Tenacity, because it will decrease the cooldown of my active skill. And yeah, if I have these 2 passive skills, I'm super happy. And then I just, in best case scenario, I can also add Ignition and Ice Touch. As you can see here, the potency will increase from high insight and high agility. So the numbers you see here will increase even more. I know that there's also good to perhaps have a pet with Savior, and maybe I'm gonna have a reserve familiar which has that passive skill. And if you have not been able to increase the potency, it will give me a sheet death every 75 seconds. But if I manage to get Savior on a legendary pet with legendary resilience, that number will actually go down from 75 seconds to 62 seconds. So the skills are buffed quite heavily when you have them on the correct familiars. So yeah, this is a long-term project, and yeah, it might be very difficult to end up with all of these 4 passive skills, but I'm really gonna aim for Lingering Wounds and Tenacity as a combination. So yeah, this is the advanced strategy that I propose. You can go for different advanced traits than me. If you're more into PvP only, then you should think about which species that corresponds best with that type of that type of build. But at least now you know how the system works, so you can adapt accordingly. So I wanted to share with you some of my conclusions. I also I know in the timeline I said we will have a segment about further research, and what I have to say there is that the thing that I have not been able to figure out so far, I've already mentioned it, is how to somehow acquire more than 2 advanced traits. And this is very important to me, because if I can go from 2 advanced traits to 3 advanced traits by using a certain strategy, that is something I will implement to this advanced strategy as well, of course. But my conclusion when it comes to the new familiar system is that it has huge potential power. I see a lot of gain in the advanced traits, and if you can get your critical hit chance up by approximately 10%, that's actually huge when it comes to your DPS output. So it has huge potential, but it's quite difficult to get there, of course. There's one thing that I struggle with when it comes to familiars, and I hope that they really change this somehow. It's that the active skill of your familiar is cast immediately when it has a chance, so you can't control it, and this messes up your rotations in dungeons, for example, because when the familiar is using its active skill, it will also, if you're a summoner, for example, it will make all your summons attack as well, and it will trigger Mother's Lament, and when the summons attack, it will trigger Shepherd's the Shepherd 6-piece set if you have that equipped. So you actually set off a lot of effects when you don't want to set them off, because most often you want to set them off at perhaps a dungeon boss. So I think that they should somehow change this. Maybe you can toggle the active skill so it will only happen after you are attacking something, or even better, it would be quite cool if your companion actually added an extra skill button so that you can control it 100%. So you throw it and then there's a cooldown, so it's just like an extra skill. I think that would be a lot more fun as well. So if it's possible, I hope that they look into this and change the system a little bit compared to how it is right now. At first, when I started experimenting with the familiars, I thought that, okay, I really don't like this system. It's so much RNG, and in general, I think that some elements of RNG is fine, but if you are investing a lot of time into perfecting something, you don't want to end up with a worse result than you started with. So I would say that at the moment it's a little bit too much RNG. Maybe we will discover new ways to decrease the RNG factor even more, but this is a huge obstacle for a lot of people, because they don't want to invest any time in something when they don't know what the outcome will be. I also have to lift a warning when it comes to the market. It seems like this is another way to acquire a lot of platinum, and I've seen on Reddit and different places that people are running a lot of different alt accounts just to farm these contracts. And when you flood the markets with new companions like this, and there's a lot of platinum at play, it might disrupt the market quite severely. So I really hope that they monitor this so it doesn't get out of hand. And I also see a huge risk because between different servers, the markets look very differently. And as it works right now is whenever you have done a conversion, the familiar will be sellable on the market. And I know on some servers where certain familiars they don't sell, while they sell for maximum price on other servers. So this actually means that people could go to a server to buy these cheap familiars from the market, and then they transfer to another server, make one conversion, and then sell it for maximum. And I don't think that this is healthy at all. So they should really look into this as well. And finally, but absolutely not least, I am very disappointed in the tooltips when it comes to the familiars. The language used is very poorly written, and it doesn't explain everything in detail. I think it's very important when new content is released, especially when it comes to something that people invest a lot of time in, like with familiars, that they explain it thoroughly so that there is no room for error. Because I can imagine that there will be quite a lot of players that are putting a lot of resources into making their super dragon or whatever, because that's what they want to do, but they make mistakes along the way, and in the end they end up with something that they really don't need, and this might turn people off and maybe even make them quit the game. So yeah, I really hope going forward that they when they release something like this, that they make sure that all the tooltips are correct, that they are clear to understand, and of course, I mean, also communicate with us, maybe an easier way to ask questions, so we don't have to find things out the hard way. So yeah, these are my main conclusions when it comes to the pets, and the familiars. Yeah, so this is the ultimate familiar guide. I really put in a lot of effort and a lot of hard work into putting this together, and as I said in the beginning, there might be some details in this guide that is not 100% correct, but I think that most of it is useful, and yeah, I hope it will help you to use your familiars properly and to do the correct conversions and use conversion stones when you should and when you shouldn't. Yeah, so you don't have to make the same mistakes as I did a few times trying to acquire all this knowledge. Before we say goodbye, I would once again like to thank a lot of people that has been sharing other videos and material on Reddit, and also on different Discord servers. I think it's really nice to see what a great community we have within Diablo Immortal, and that we help each other. And yeah, thumbs up and a huge thank you to all of you. You know who you are. And of course, I would put your name in this video as well, but you asked me not to. So yeah, yeah. So this is it for today. And I want to wish you all an awesome day or an awesome evening wherever you are. And to all my clan members in Kuro, I would of course like to say Avrath el Omno Kuro. Bye bye.